We're going to go ahead and call to order our March 5th Budget and Finance Committee meeting. And we're going to begin with resolutions. RS 2018-1054, sponsors O'Connell, Withers, and others. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. I believe we have an amendment. Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the recognition and for the committee's consideration of this. This amendment, we had worked with Metro Finance. Unfortunately, when I had first drafted this was when we started to recognize the deeper constraints around the Nashville general conversation. And so I worked with them to ensure that we were not actually going to have this effective date create any more pressure on the current fiscal year. So we have moved that effective date and then just adjusted the recital slightly to try to capture the fact that we hope that this creates some operational efficiencies going forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Glover.
Just very quickly, Chair, I have some questions I'd like to ask, and before we adjourn today, I would just ask to be recognized at the end of the meeting, please.
Absolutely. Well,
Thank you,
I
Chair.
would definitely recognize you. Can I get a motion to move the amendment?
Move.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Amendment passes. Now we're on the resolution as amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes as amended. RS 2018-1058, sponsors Dow and Vircher, approves a socket to litter grant from the Tennessee Department of Transportation to the Metro Nashville General Services Department to propose a multifaceted solution to ongoing litter issues at the commons, at the crossings. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1059, sponsor Vircher, authorizes the Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claim for Angela Rowland in the amount of $27,000. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1060, sponsors Vircher and Gilmore, approves a grant from the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metro Board of Health to provide public health activities to enhance the health and well-being of women, infants, and families by improving community resources and service delivery systems. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1061, sponsors Vircher, Gilmore, Freeman, approves a grant from Adrian Butnick and community members to the Metro Board of Health to provide emergency medical care for animals at Metro Animal Care and Control. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1062, sponsor Vircher and Gilmore, approves a grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to the Metro Board of Health to enhance access to comprehensive continuum of high-quality community-based care for low-income individuals and family with HIV. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1066, sponsors Vircher, Roten, and others, approves a grant from Greenways for Nashville to Metro Parks and Recreation to provide funding and support of I-440 Greenway construction project. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1067, sponsor Vircher and Roten, approves a Friends of Centennial Park and Parthenon grant from the Conservancy for the Parthenon and Centennial Park to Metro Parks to provide funding for one employee salary. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Council Lady Henderson, you recognize.
Thank you, Chair Vircher. Is anyone here from Parks to speak to this? No? I would move that we defer this one meeting, please.
for one meeting?
One meeting, please, yes.
There's a motion for a one-meeting deferral. All in favor? Any more discussion on the deferral? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution is deferred for one meeting. RS 2018-1068, sponsors Henderson, Virtue, and Roten, approves a grant package from the Friends of Warner Parks to Metro Parks to provide staffing for the Warner Park Center, Nature Center support, and the SWEAT program for additional labor for summer maintenance. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1069, sponsors Virtue and Roberts, approves a grant from the Tennessee Highland Rim Healthcare Coalition to the Nashville Fire Department for the purchase of battery-operated remote lighting and rescue stretchers. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1070, sponsors Virtue and Roten, approves a hazardous materials emergency preparedness grant from the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency to Metro government. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Vice Chair Schulman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question as to the purpose of the grant. I wonder if somebody's here from emergency management.
Do we have someone here that can speak? We're on 2018-1070, RS 2018-1070. It's a hazardous materials emergency preparedness grant.
Yeah, that's our, what we call.
Please identify yourself for the viewing
I'm
audience.
Chief Swan, Director Chief of the Nashville Fire Department. And also with that, the Office of Emergency Management is umbrellaed under the fire department, so I am the Director of OEM as well. So fire and ice is a substance that we use to actually put out, it's like a fire extinguisher on steroids, basically. It puts out magnesium. Also, it puts out other highly toxic fumes or fire. And so we get it through TEMA, but we have to go through OEM, the Office of Emergency Management, to obtain it. But it's used just for hazmat and hazmat response.
So this is just a request to approve your application to apply for that. Is that what this is?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1071, sponsors Virtue and Airrod, approves a special litter grant from the Tennessee Department of Transportation to Metro Public Works to propose community-based litter education and neighborhood cleanups targeting all ages. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1072, sponsors Hastings, Virtue, and Airrod, approves a flood mitigation assistance grant from the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency to Metro Water and Sewage Services for flood mitigation. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. That brings us to bills on second reading. BL 2018-1101, sponsors Roten, Virtue, and others, authorizes the Director of Public Property to enter into a sublease agreement and a consent by a lessor to sublease agreement with Strive Collegiate Academy and Donaldson Corporate Center for temporary office space at Lebanon Pike. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Councilman Mendez, you're recognized.
I would just like to be marked as abstaining on this one, please.
It's noted. Councilman Cooper.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. I was hoping that we could get an update on the work schedule behind the police headquarters and the costs of this lease extension.
Thelvin Hunter with General Services. I can give you an update on the construction schedule for the new headquarters. Right now, we're expecting construction to be complete at the end of October. We'll work through the punch list in November, start moving the furniture and do the information technology installations in January, and move people in January.
Thank you. What's the projected cost now of the headquarters?
I'll have to get you that information. I'm not sure of the total.
And what was the original delivery date of the headquarters?
I don't recall.
Okay. How much is this lease extension for?
See.
Okay. Director Barry?
You're on, Director Barry.
Okay, great. The original delivery date that we were working off of on the original lease with Activision was early 2018. So that particular lease, we stepped into an existing lease that was there already. Activision had relocated. This was a 10-year lease. We stepped into the final years of that lease, so our base rent was well below market, being a 10-year lease. And secondly, the space was furnished, fully furnished, so we could occupy it as is, no changes. And thirdly, there was plenty of parking, which was very difficult to find for police. That particular lease ended May of 2018. The new projected delivery date, as I understand it, is in January of 2019. So what we were doing, Councilman, is we negotiated, in essence, what is a holdover into the existing space.
Okay.
And we worked with Strive Collegiate Academy to do it. They were gracious enough to allow us to remain in that space.
Thank you. So back to my question, if you could provide whether this cost is in addition to our projected headquarters cost, or whether the headquarters is coming in hopefully under budget so that our budget guidelines will not be, will still be within those parameters. If you would be able to do that, could you do that by tomorrow, do you think? Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Councilman. Council Lady Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I read the analysis on this, and I think I understand it. But if we could just get Mr. Jameson to talk through the $40,000 a month and the $58,000 overage and what that means and how that adds up to $100,000, I just would appreciate understanding it better.
The 100,000 is just the 40.
Sum of the two.
It's the sum of the two. That's
And
correct.
so the overage is simply, this is what we used to charge was $40,000, and now because some reason we're going to charge you $58,000 on top of that?
As far as the because, I might defer to Mr. Berry if I can.
Mr. Barry, can you address that?
Basically, we were in at a very low rate, so the lease is going to expire. So we're subleasing from Strive Collegiate Academy, and they are paying what is now market rent in the building. So the $40,000 that you see and change, that is the current market rent that Strive is paying, and we will step into that rent. And then we're also paying what I refer to as overage rent directly to Strive as an incentive to work with Metro, since they had to make quite a few adjustments to their school schedule, and they're remaining in pods outside the school to accommodate police. So that's basically the sum of the two.
Gotcha. Okay. And so we're not moving at all. I mean, this is keeping Metro Police from having to pick up and move twice, which, as you've said in the analysis, would be an expense to Metro regardless, a greater expense than this.
That's correct. We looked at alternative space, which was hard to find because it was such a short-term lease and a big block of space. So we looked at alternative space, and then we calculated costs associated with relocating. That would be the rent differential, the IT costs, which is a big number as it relates to police, build-out costs, and move costs.
Gotcha.
And so we estimated the savings to remain where we are versus leasing alternative space at roughly $800,000.
Okay, so that's where it's been $100,000 to save $800,000.
Right.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Council Lady. Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, if I may, I would like to try and expand on Councilman Cooper's questions, but I'm going to ask him for clarification with your permission.
You have it.
Thank you. Councilman, I want to make sure I understand the question you asked with regards to the cost. Are they staying within the guidelines, et cetera? Did I hear that correctly? Okay. So I would expand that a bit more because, as you know, I've had heartburn over this because, in my opinion, we're paying for this building twice. I would like to know what our total cost is going to be, including these additional rents and things, and with the overage on time, et cetera. So, Councilman, I wasn't certain if I understood your question to include that, but I would like to expand the question for that answer to be included.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Mr. Barry?
Sorry. Yes, we'll provide that information.
Thank you so
I will
much.
work with Velva to do that.
Okay, and I think considering with the climate provided to the entire Budget and Finance Committee. Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Bill passes. BL 2018-1102 sponsors Van Rees, Vercher, and Batney. Authorizes the conveyance of property located at 801 Old Due West Avenue, commonly known as Old Due West Landfill. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Council Lady Van Rees.
Thank you very much. I bring greetings from the Old Due West landfill. We're very excited to be able to further extend the repurposing of the old landfill. Just today we did the groundbreaking for Music City Solar, and I want to thank my colleagues for helping make that happen. This is the kind of phase 2, if you will, in my playbook on this particular area. I provided Rosie an image that I was hoping that you guys would have on your desk here today. You'll have that by tomorrow so that you can kind of see how it's laid out in regard to the two issues. HCA and Skyline Medical Center is the largest employer in District 8. They've been incredibly important to our future. And if you've ever been to Skyline Hospital and tried to find parking, I don't have to sell this very hard at all. So with that, if you have any questions, I know that we have someone here from HCA as well.
Thank you so much, Council Lady. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Bill passes. Before we adjourn, Councilman Glover is seeking recognition. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. So it's come to my attention, I think it's come to several of us on the floor here, it's come to our attention that a good bit of work is being done at the fairgrounds prior to actual execution of contracts, MOUs, between the Parks Board and the Fairground Board, which is disturbing to me. Because apparently there's been a boatload of money that's been spent without an understanding by both parties. It certainly did not come through this body, et cetera. So I know there's a meeting on Wednesday with that committee, and I'm wondering, Chair, is there a possibility that Budget and Finance could be engaged in that conversation as well? Because I think once we start understanding the amount of money that's been spent without the proper procedures being followed, I think several of us may be appalled on the way it's happened. And so therefore, that's why I ask if we were able to, if I was able to ask this question, because if what I think I'm reading is true, it's highly disturbing. And I think the taxpayers and I think the people who are involved with the fairgrounds that are supporters of, not whatever the case, park supporters, et cetera, I feel like it's our responsibility to understand what money has been spent. Why was it spent prior to the actual MOUs being signed by both of the commissions? And so I just extend that to find out if it's possible for us to be a part of that conversation. If not, I'll try and be here on my own, because I think it's questions that need to be asked, and I feel like it needs to have a detailed answer to understand exactly why do we continue to bypass our policies and operate outside of what we should be operating as. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. And to address your concern, I believe it's too late for it to be noticed as a joint committee meeting, including Budget and Finance. But I would encourage Budget and Finance committee members to be in attendance at the upcoming meeting on Wednesday. I have a neighborhood meeting, but I will make every effort to be here also. I think it's prudent amongst all of us to be engaged in these conversations, considering some of the challenges that we may be faced with for this upcoming budget cycle. With that said, our last Budget and Finance Committee meeting, I asked you to mark your calendars for March 19th. We're going to have a special call committee meeting. And at that time, the Finance Department, we're going to go through our revenues, our quarterly financials, our debt, and a number of bullet points that was outlined in a letter from Director of Finance to us as council members. I know many of you are receiving a lot of questions from Metro employees, your constituents, as it relates to our budget. And I want to say, too, that so that everyone is aware, there is no conversations of actual budget cuts at this point. And I want to make sure, I'm looking over here to Director of Finance, shaking her head, yeah. We are not at that point. We have not asked department heads for across the board 1% cuts. So I want to make sure that we dispel any of those rumors as a committee. As a committee, it's up for us to work with the facts, to work with the numbers, so that we can do our charge here, and that's being stewards of taxpayers' dollars. So make sure you have it on your calendar, March 19th. We're going to have a special committee meeting, and Department of Finance will be presenting us with that at 3 o'clock, Council Lady, 3 o'clock, March 19th. Also, I know many of you have been receiving communications as it relates to schools. I'm working with the Chair of Education. We're going to be having a joint meeting with the schools to talk about their budgetary issues as well. I know we're going to have a lot of meetings in this time of year. Many of you have been on this committee for a number of years, and you know that this is our time where we're tasked to meet a lot, to ask a lot of questions, and to do our due diligence, which is what we're elected here to do. With that, I have one more councilman in the queue. Councilman Cooper, you recognize before we adjourn.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Seeing our finance director and our legal director here, I always take advantage of getting an education. A quick question on procedure. With the Fair Park and the Parks Department on expenditures taking place on that site, does there have to be a memorandum of understanding before any expenditures can take place?
The Fair Board and the Parks Board are both Metro. When it is Metro working with Metro, you do not need any kind of MOU or written agreement.
Okay, so thank you for that. So then why is, I know on the Parks Board, on their agenda is a memorandum of understanding. They still have to do that, right? And why would they?
I don't think it's required. I think it's good when you have two departments working together to memorialize what the responsibilities are for the various parties. So that's usually why we do. MOUs are non-binding, but sometimes departments who are working on some kind of joint venture will have one.
Okay. And then with our wonderful finance director here, a quick question. This is Parks budgeted money being spent on the Fair Board
There are separate allocations that have been made available to the fairgrounds as well as parks. Parks received a specific allocation having to do with the soccer and greenways at that site.
So both parks and Fair Board money is being spent?
Yes, at that location. And my plan is to kind of get you a summary of those allocations that have been made before we convene on Wednesday.
Okay, appreciate it with you two here. I just wanted to, I unfortunately have to be gone on Wednesday. Just wanted to continue my education. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Cooper. Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Chair. All right, so let me make sure I just understand what I just heard here. So if two departments want to do whatever they want to do, even though they put it on the agenda for an MOU vote, then it's really not relevant. Is that what I just heard?
No, sir, I didn't say it wasn't relevant. I said it wasn't legally required.
Okay, so if one votes on the MOU and it's on the agenda for the other to vote on the MOU, is it proper, whether it can be done or not, is it proper to go ahead and start spending millions of dollars before all parties understand exactly the responsibility of each department and each one's budget, et cetera? And if it's not proper for that to happen, then Mr. Jameson, I'm going to ask for us to work on some type of language to where we clean that up. Because as I'm looking through numbers and I'm preparing for the budget season right now, it appears a lot of money's been spent without a full understanding of exactly where both parties are on these expenditures. So if it's not necessary, I think that's probably a mistake. And I would hope that we will fix that. So, Mr. Jameson, if we could, let's have a conversation about that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Council Lady Dow, are you seeking recognition before we adjourn?
Thank you. I just had a quick question. For our meeting on Wednesday, is there any way that the administration can bring what the plans are for the money that's being spent? I'd like to know, like, by dollar what they're doing, because I've not seen any recent master plan of what they're doing over there.
They've indicated yes, Council Lady.
Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, we are adjourned.